Dr. Rekha Rajendra Kumar, I welcome you here on this platform. She is also a member of Food and... Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. So she has many gold medals. She is very academically, very... Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, it has become mute. Yes. Yes, I welcome Dr. Rekha Rajendra Kumar. She is a medical director and IVF consultant at Miracle IVF Hospital, Chandana Hospital and Gynae Endoscopy Center. She has worked for many committees of FOXI, and she's a member of my committee as well. She has many papers and publications, articles, and she has more than 40 radio and television talks. So she's very wonderful speaker and she works into infertility. Let us listen from her how the microbiomes help in the ART outcome. Welcome, Rekha, and start.
Ma'am, this is Dr. Kiran. I just want to add a couple of lines about Rekha, ma'am. Ma'am received the Kittur Rani Chennamma Award in April 2020.
Yes. I could not read. Yes. Kittur Rani Chennamma. Yeah. She is like Kittur Rani Chennamma only.
Definitely.
Let us fight.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll start my talk.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And also, ma'am, before you start the talk, one more point I want to say, because there was recently a marathon on walk on May 10th, and ma'am was the person who completed 15 kilometers. So I thought I should
15. Add. Okay. Yes. I could not read between the lines, but you could.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, FOXI colleagues, my seniors, Dr. Vidya Tobbi, my co-speakers, and more than anything, the audience who are here. You are supposed to have actually a post-lunch snap, but you are all here to listen to us. I'm extremely grateful to you all, and I'm starting my talk. I'm supposed to speak on emerging role of vaginal microbiome and ART outcomes. Coming to the introduction, now, health of the host, any person, depends upon the delicate balance between a lot of microbiomes, which my previous speakers were speaking. There are lots, more than hundreds and 200s. It's just the interaction is a delicate balance between all of them, and they interact so actively with the internal milieu of their own host, and ultimately it can be a beneficial effect or a detrimental effect. Let us just move on. The disturbance in their composition can happen, and also that may lead to different kind of health issues, as they have already mentioned. I'm going to speak on the ART aspect, that is the fertility aspect of these microbiomes. The outgrowth of opportunistic bacterial pathogens, that is the bad ones, can threaten the health and life of the host. I'm audible, right? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Perfectly audible.
Fine. Okay. There is diversity of the microbial ecology within the human body. The vaginal microbiota is unique in that in many women, it is most often dominated by the lactobacillus, as all of us have been studying over so many years. I'm not touching upon the uterine microbiota here because that itself is a big topic. I'm talking on the vaginal microbiota. So the lactobacillus is the age-old one and a very familiar one. However, in some women, it lacks the lactobacillus species, that is the vaginal environment lacks the lactobacillus species, and that is compromised of a wide array of facultative anaerobes, which we are not happy with, which we have never invited, and they cause an increased risk of infection, and ultimately that is reproductive and the obstetric outcomes are disastrous. and we don't want that to happen. The composition and function of the vaginal microbiota appear to play an important role in pregnancy, and definitely the precursor of that is the bad fertility treatment outcomes. So interestingly, the level of protection against infection can also vary by species and strains of the lactobacillus itself. There are many strains inside the lactobacillus. When I talk in my future slides, I'm going to explain that. So the microbiome profiling enables accurate prediction of both the failure and the success of the fertility treatment. So the women with an unfavorable profile had 7 times, that is a very great number, 7 times lower chance of achieving a pregnancy. Just the microbiome itself has such a great impact. So 7 times lower chance of achieving pregnancy compared to the women who had a favorable one. So just coming to the few definitions, because we are going to use these terms frequently in future slides. The collection of the microorganisms that live on or in the human body, not only in the vaginal flora, constitutes the microbiota, and a complete genetic profile is referred to as the microbiome, that one intact term. Probiotics are the foods. I'm just telling the pro. They are the probiotics are the food or the supplements that contain live microorganisms intended to maintain or improve the good bacteria, which are the invited ones, what we want to be there. That's a normal microflora in the other simple words. We want that in the body. The prebiotics, what is the difference with the pre and pro? Prebiotics are the food, typically high fiber food, especially in terms of the GIT, that act as the food for the human microflora. They are the food for the microflora itself. The use of pre and probiotics together is called the microbiome therapy. The urogenital site, as Dr. Maya was speaking, the urogenital site itself comprises of 9% of the total human microbiome compared with the GIT, which makes about 29% of the total. That's around roughly 2 to 3 times. The normal microflora of the reproductive tract includes a variety of lactobacillus species which promote a healthy, supportive environment for the embryo in the pre and periconceptual period. So that ultimately we want that lactobacillus species. The most common bacteria that inhabit the vagina belong to the genus Lactobacillus and comprises 90 to 95%. That's a very high composition of the total bacterial count in the reproductive tract. Lactobacillus acidophilus is the most researched strain, as all of us know, that is a probiotic, and it is also responsible for establishing and maintaining a healthy vaginal balance. There are other small chota ones like Lactobacillus crispatus, Inus, blah blah blah. There are so many other lactobacillus. Mainly, a very familiar one is the acidophilus. So what is the mechanism of this lactobacillus? What does it do? Why do we want that? How does it help us? The lactobacillus reduces the pH. All of us know, and previous speakers also have mentioned that. It produces short chain fatty acid. It has protective effect against the pathogen colonization. It fights and sends them out. The different lactobacillus species have different characteristics, such as the ability to produce the lactic acid. That's how it reduces the pH from the degradation of glycogen conversion. The acidity achieved by the Lactobacillus crispatus, this is one favorable and familiar one, is the highest compared to the other ones, Inus, Gensi and Gasseri, etc. This crispatus reduces the pH to a very great extent, so that is a very friendly lactobacillus. Lactic acid production boosts the innate immune system also, and so that it inhibits the growth of bacteria other than the lactobacillus itself. It also acts as a mechanical barrier by binding and sticking to the surface of the vaginal epithelial cells. Maybe like a competitive inhibition, it sticks to the vaginal cells and it prevents the binding of the other bacteria. It doesn't allow, it fights and sends them out. It does not allow those pathogens to stick to the vaginal wall, and so they are not allowed to grow and flourish there. Thus, it makes more challenging for them to grow. Lactobacillus may also attack directly the harmful bacteria. It attacks directly, it kills them and perishes them and whatever it wants to do. 40% of the patients undergoing IVF cycles who have no symptoms whatsoever, absolutely no discharge, no pain, no PID symptoms, have abnormal reproductive tract. 40% have abnormal reproductive tract microbiota. One may be very surprised, actually I was, as proved by the posterior fornix swabs, a study where they repeatedly took the swabs from the high posterior fornix once the patient was induced into the cycle, like the day 2, day 5, whenever we monitor the follicles, like pick up, even after the embryo transfer, they monitored even the 8th week of the pregnancy. One study conducted on 91 women undergoing IVF with embryo transfer, the reduction of the implantation rate, the LBR, that is live birth rate, and ongoing pregnancy was seen in the group with the positive culture for Streptococcus viridans, Enterobacteriaceae, Staphylococcus, etc. recovered from the embryo transfer tip. These were all recovered. Few studies have shown a 50% reduction, which is a substantial number, in pregnancy rate when the bacteria were recovered from the embryo transfer catheter tip, maybe the above ones, the Strepto, Staphylo, Entero, etc. Vaginal microfloral composition at the time of embryo transfer appeared to be an important factor in the success of IVF embryo transfer procedure, with a vaginal microbiome composed solely of lactobacillus yielding the most successful outcome. So if that woman has lactobacillus inside her, that fights up against everything, and the pregnancy is, we get a more favorable result after the IVF ET procedure in her. The chances of take-home baby rate is much more in these women. In the infertility clinical setting, a broad spectrum antibiotic therapy, as we use amoxicillin, levofloxacin, etc., was used to modulate the non-lactobacillus dominant environment. They wanted to convert these pathogens to a lactobacillus dominant conducive atmosphere by the combination of antibiotics, pre and probiotics. When they saw that 53% of the patients achieved lactobacillus dominant state in the vagina and uterus also, while showing a higher pregnancy rate compared to the non-lactobacillus dominant group. Vaginal and seminal microbiome of the 23 couples were studied. They were the idiopathic infertility, considered as idiopathic infertility in the sense all other factors were ruled out, like PRO, POR, that is the poor ovarian reserve or tubal factor or the male factor, etc., was analyzed via the vaginal swab and the seminal fluids collected through the PCR amplification test. What they found was there was a differential composition of the vaginal microbiome, but that had no implication on the seminal microbiome. In the sense, the lactobacillus is more favorable, non-lactobacillus pathogens are harmful. These kind of things never emerged in the seminal microbiome study, and thus it was associated with the success of IUI in couples with the idiopathic infertility. So what I want to say is that we are supposed to concentrate on microbiomes of a female genital tract than male genital tract. Studies that characterize the vaginal microbiome in assisted reproductive technology support the hypothesis that colonizing the transfer catheter tape, when we do the embryo transfer, with the lactobacillus crispatus, this I mentioned previously, if you can recall, at the time of the embryo transfer may increase the rate of implantation. This is an invited member to us. The rates of implantation and live birth rate while decreasing the rate of infection. The L. crispatus, as a lactobacillus domination, was an important factor that strongly associated with even our embryo transfer, even in IUI success. L. crispatus promotes a favorable environment for pregnancy, ultimately either in vagina or uterine environment. Vaginal microbiome has been shown to change during the normal menstrual cycle also. As all of us know, with varied estrogen level, there are different 2 waves of estrogen what we get in a menstrual cycle, etc. According to that, the vaginal microbiome also alters in the physiological range. Why I'm saying the physiological range, you will come to know in the same slide a bit later. In the physiological range, thus having cyclical hormone influence. There is an association of the reproductive tract microbiome composition with circulating not only estrogen, also progesterone levels. See here, women with anovulation, so the estrogen level in the physiological range has a strong association or a positive correlation with the vaginal microbiome, but not in women who are PCOS. Women with anovulation were also 3 times more likely to have bacterial vaginosis than women. They are not left behind. Though they are a hyperestrogenic state, it is the proper estrogen progesterone balance or the proper physiological estrogen waves are not there. So in these women, there are 3 times more likely chance of having bacterial vaginosis than women with other factors of infertility, thus supporting the suggestion of hormonal influence on vaginal flora. This is one more added problem for us. Alteration in the vaginal microbiome may have an impact on the cytokine network. This all means inflammation in the endometrium or the vagina may be ignited by the pathological bacteria which are there, and this cytokine network is an important one influencing factor in the fertility for the embryo and its adaptation to the microenvironment, because the inflammation happens not only in the vagina, even in the uterine cavity. The same inflammation may be influencing in endometriosis also, because what happens in endometriosis is there is a significant increase in the vaginal pH beyond 4.5. We want less than 4, but it is increasing more than 5, more than 4.5, and there is a decrease in the normal vaginal microflora naturally when it is more than 4.5. So this may be an added causative factor in endometriosis. Endometriosis itself already has a lot of enigmas, loose ends, and a lot of unsolved theories, and this may be, we may be adding this one to the list. So ultimately what I want to say is, from the uterine dysbiosis, that blue dark broad arrow, when it takes all things into consideration, the antibiotics, the probiotics, prebiotics, so many things there, ultimately we want to convert the uterine or the vaginal dysbiosis to ultimately the healthy uterine microenvironment. Negative impact of the ART procedure. What happens? The contamination is possible from the vaginal cervical microorganisms by needle puncture of the vagina when we do the ovum pickup. Controlled ovarian hypostimulation would also impact the vaginal microbiome. This may represent yet another argument for cryopreservation of embryos. Not only we do FET, not only for the ovarian hyperstimulation or a hyperestrogenic state, what we create when we increase the number of follicles or the stimulate follicles during the ovum pickup. In the current cycle, we don't want to transfer the embryo and want to do the frozen embryo transfer. This may be one of the reasons, because the environment in the vagina and uterus come to a more physiological state in the future cycles, the next cycle, not the one when we have done the controlled ovarian hyperstimulation. I hope I made you understand. Microorganisms that enter the endometrium from the cervix during the embryo transfer, when we take that tip of the transfer catheter, that could damage the developing embryo and prevent pregnancy. Bacterial vaginosis. Now, I have spoken little about in general, coming in particular to the bacterial vaginosis, what is its impact on fertility. Rather than a single organism impairing female fertility, variations in the overall vaginal microbiome, such as the bacterial vaginosis, may also have a role in infertility as it initiates the vaginal dysbiosis. Bacterial vaginosis is a common genital disorder. I can call it as king of the genital disorder. The vaginal microflora disturbing microorganism with the prevalence of approximately 19%, almost 1 out of 5 in the infertile population, the most common vaginal syndrome of the reproductive age women. They may be totally asymptomatic. Complete disruption of the vaginal ecosystem can occur, complete disruption, in which anaerobic bacteria assume predominance. They overtake the desirable strains of our friendly lactobacillus. Bacterial vaginosis is often subclinical with the change of the vaginal microbiota from being dominated to a more heterogeneous environment with anaerobic bacteria such as Gardnerella vaginalis, needless to say. Few studies have been conducted in infertile women, and some have suggested a negative impact on fecundity in the presence of BV. A recent study among Nigerian women demonstrated that bacterial vaginosis is 4 times prevalent, that is too much, in women with the tubal factor infertility compared to fertile controls. This is just a slide which tells about something called Nugent score, which compares between the the proper physiological lactobacillus in the vagina versus bacterial vaginosis. The first slide is about the lactobacillus and the next one is about the bacterial vaginosis. The pH is 4 in the left side and the right side, that is the BV, pH is more than 5. There are a lot of symptoms, and the clue cell is important for the diagnosis in bacterial vaginosis. Pathophysiology of bacterial vaginosis and vaginal imbalance in female infertility. That increases, ultimately there is a generation of ROS. This affects the membrane integrity and flexibility, and not only the egg gets hampered, even the sperm which have entered the vagina, their membrane integrity is also lost, so the sperm quality also goes down, the acrosomal cap gets affected, and ultimately it disrupts the fertilization and implantation. A recent meta-analysis and systematic review of 12 studies exploring the role of bacterial vaginosis on infertility has shown that bacterial vaginosis is significantly more prevalent in infertile women than in pregnant women of the same population, and this review estimated that 1 in 5, 20% have BV, and at least 1 in 3 has an abnormal vaginal microflora. Bacterial vaginosis is associated with a significantly elevated risk of biochemical pregnancy loss. The finding of a significantly raised rate of bacterial vaginosis in women with the tubal factor, little bit overlap with my previous slides, with the tubal factor infertility supports the association of bacterial vaginosis with PID, tubal damage, etc. All of us know, but I just want to mention a fact here. We don't know the order of the problems, in the sense whether it is secondary to the previous tubal damage that is already happened by the chlamydia trachomatis or Neisseria gonorrhoeae, or whether the bacterial vaginosis associated organisms compromise the host immunity and trachomatis and gonorrhea etc. appear later causing STD, or whether the bacterial vaginosis per se can cause damage to the fallopian tubes, ultimately results in tubal damage. Antibiotics are recommended for the management of bacterial vaginosis, but the use of antibiotics, excess use of antibiotics, or injudicious use of antibiotics, I can say, can be associated with higher recurrence rate, maybe because of resistance. Antibiotics may also suppress the growth of lactobacilli, which antagonize the colonization of pathogens causing bacterial vaginosis, and that may be one more reason for recurrence. It's evident from the literature that oral administration of lactobacilli-based probiotics reduce the number of pathogenic bacteria in women with bacterial vaginosis. Now, treating the bacterial vaginosis increases the pregnancy rate, as the slide shows. It is 24% if untreated and 49% if bacterial vaginosis is treated. Some facts, just to mention, maybe overlap little bit with my previous slides. Microbiota play a key role in implantation and pregnancy success in IVF. Alterations in the vaginal microbiome may alter the reproductive potential of the infertile patients, and perhaps correcting the microbial dysbiosis, this is the term, would lead to improved sexes. So we have to bark on this dysbiosis and make it a symbiosis environment. The presence of a non-lactobacillus dominated microbiota was associated with significant decrease in implantation, ongoing pregnancy and live birth, concurrently increasing the incidence of STD and pelvic inflammatory disease. Pathological modification of its profile is associated with poor reproductive outcomes for IVF patients. Microbiota in the uterine cavity, not only in the vaginal atmosphere, uterine cavity seem to be a continuum from the microbiota in the vagina, maybe ascending up, though there are some differences between the two. This may have impact on the embryo implantation and ongoing pregnancy. Administration of broad spectrum antibiotics like levofloxacin reduce the growth of E. coli in the vaginal coli. So this is something in connection with Dr. Ameya's slides. That is why I'm just talking of the ART, but maybe because of the E. coli are flourishing in the vaginal atmosphere, the urinary tract infection is increased, of course, more in menopausal women. I'm restricting myself to the ART. Administration of probiotics with a lactobacillus and or antibiotics concurrently may be considered useful to treat subclinical and recurrent vaginal and uterine infections. Use of next generation DNA sequencing technologies, some emerging things, newer technologies happening, should expand the knowledge in this area which we really need to know. A healthy vaginal microbiota can prevent urogenital ill health such as urinary tract infection and bacterial vaginosis. Therefore, studies leading to the vaginal microbiomes will facilitate discovery of improved diagnostics and treatments for such conditions, real need of the hour. What is new in this? Harnessing specific bacterial strains in the vagina, maybe like a capsule in the vagina or the patch in the vagina, so as to prime the vaginal microbiota. Multiplication of the conducive flora in the pre and periconceptual periods is a novel thought for research. The vaginal microbiota of IVF patients can be characterized with the PCR test, which may be promising tools for diagnosing abnormal vaginal microbiota and for prediction in IVF treatment. We may use this technology and improve our IVF outcome. The success rates may be increased. New area of microbial transplants like the vaginal microbiota transplant, we also call as VMT, which is opening new frontiers for the reproductive health. What is VMT? It involves the transfer of the cervico-vaginal fluid of another woman who is a healthy person, absolutely no problem, has a good lactobacillus count in her, to a patient who aims to restore. It's like donating her vaginal flora. The most beneficial microenvironment so that the lactobacillus flourishes there also. VMT from healthy donors can be used as therapeutic alternative for patients suffering from symptomatic, intractable and recurrent vaginosis, not only for the ART purpose, even otherwise, beyond ART. Take-home messages. There is a window of opportunity for improving IVF reproductive outcomes by identify high-risk women, these kind of women with abnormal vaginal microbiome. All these days, we were hardly considering this. We were thinking of so many other factors in women, trying to chase other etiologies. We are supposed to probably include one of the tests like the high vaginal swab to identify whether it's a lactobacillus or something else and find out and diagnose and pinpoint the microbiome so that we can consider on that and treat her and get rid of the problems. Maybe they will be included in one of the battery of tests of our ART patients. Without a favorable and conducive vaginal microbiome, the implantation and subsequent embryo development seems to be compromised, as I have already mentioned. Offering therapeutic options aiming at modulation of unfavorable vaginal microbiota towards a more favorable profile by use of antibiotics, vagina-specific pre- and probiotics like lactobacillus will definitely enhance our IVF ICSI success and thereby optimize the ART results. Antibiotic treatment is definitely effective, but the selection of the right antibiotic is very critical. New therapies such as pro and prebiotic administration and microbiota transplants are gaining popularity for improving and maintaining the optimal composition of the microbiota. However, further clinical trials of course required. Probiotics have an immunomodulatory effect of the cytokine profile, and they confer immunological protection to the host through the regulation, stimulation, and modulation of immune response. Only specific lactobacillus species are present in the healthy flora. These species are likely to play a pivotal role in maintaining a supportive environment for implantation and future pregnancy outcome. Molecular-based techniques have revolutionized our knowledge, and they are in the pipeline. We are now able to explore the microorganisms that were not detected previously, adding missing pieces of the puzzle called the reproductive tract microbiome. Thank you all for your patient hearing.
Yeah.
I conclude my talk here.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah.